Hey, come see us on tour. We'll be in Duluth, Georgia, right outside of Atlanta, Jacksonville, Florida, Tempe, Arizona, and Burbank, California. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for those tickets. It's been a crazy day, and the left and the right have flipped. So that's what I'm going to show you that in a second. But first, let me show you what Bobby Kennedy did today. Bobby Kennedy came out and he said this. Watch.
16 months ago, in April of 2023, I launched my campaign for President of the United States. I began this journey as a Democrat, the party of my father, my uncle, the party which I pledged my own allegiance to long before I was old enough to vote. I attended my first Democratic convention at the age of 6 in 1960. And back then, the Democrats were the champions of the Constitution, of civil rights. The Democrats stood against authoritarianism, against censorship, against colonialism, imperialism, and unjust wars. We were the party of labor, of the working class. The Democrats were the party of government transparency and the champion of the environment. Our party was the bulwark against big money interests and corporate power. True to its name, it was the party of democracy. As you know, I left that party in October because it had departed so dramatically from the core values that I grew up with. It had become the party of war, censorship, corruption, big pharma, big tech, big ag, and big money. When it abandoned democracy by canceling the primary to conceal the cognitive decline of the sitting president, I left the party to run as an independent. The mainstream of American politics and journalism derided my decision. Conventional wisdom said that it would be impossible even to get on the ballot as an independent because each state poses an insurmountable tangle of arbitrary rules for collecting signatures. I would need over 1 million signatures, something no presidential candidate in history had ever achieved. And then I'd need a team of attorneys and millions of dollars to handle all the legal challenges from the DNC. The naysayers told us that we were climbing a glass version of Mount Impossible. So the first thing I want to tell you is that we proved them wrong. We did it because beneath the radar of mainstream media organs, we inspired a massive independent political movement. More than 100,000 volunteers sprang into action, hopeful that they could reverse our nation's decline. Many worked 10-hour days, sometimes in blizzards and blazing heat. They sacrificed family time, personal commitments, and sleep month after.
So I just want to remind you, when Bobby was on my show the first time, apparently most of the people missed that video or that interview. I told him it's a fool's errand that you're running as a Democrat. There's a reason why they have. I can't get excited about your campaign. I can't even get that interested in it because there's a reason why they have super delegates. And look what they did to Bernie. And it's so you can't become the nominee. And he even said, no, we're going to do it. And I'm a Democrat. My dad was a Democrat. My uncle was a Democrat. My whole family have been Democrats all our lives. And he even made the case that the Democratic Party was better than the Republican Party. He even made that. So he's been disabused of that idea because he ran tried to run a presidential campaign in the Democratic Party, and then he ran as an independent, and they're still suing him. So they took him to New York this week. He was in court in New York and Pennsylvania, and then they rigged the judges. The judges are DNC judges, and so the judges don't even let him testify. They screw them. So he's gotten a good dose of the fascism that the Democratic Party is pushing. I've said this, I'll say it again, the most anti-democratic Democratic Party in the history of our country. And so now he's been woken up. And so I just wanted to make that point that I told him that he was wishful thinking, and now here he is. He got his mind right. He got disabused of that, and now he sees things clearly. So let's finish the rest of this.
Energized by a shared vision of a nation healed of its divisions. They set up tables at churches and farmers markets. They canvassed door to door. In Utah and in New Hampshire, volunteers collected signatures in snowstorms, convincing each supporter to stop in the frigid cold, to take off their gloves, and to sign legibly. During a heat wave in Nevada, I met a tall, athletic volunteer who cheerfully told me that he had lost 25 pounds collecting signatures in 117-degree heat. To finance this effort, young Americans donated their lunch money, and senior citizens gave up part of their Social Security checks. Our 50-state organization collected those millions of signatures and more. No presidential campaign in American political history has ever done that. And so I want to thank all of those dedicated volunteers and congratulate the campaign staff who coordinated this enormous logistical feat. Your accomplishments were regarded as impossible. You carried me up that glass mountain. You pulled off a miracle. You achieved what all the pundits said could never be done. You have my deepest gratitude, and I'm never going to forget that, not just for what you did for my campaign, but for the sacrifices you made because you love our country. You showed everyone that democracy is still possible here. It continues to survive in the press and in the idealistic human energies that still thrive beneath the canvas of neglect and of official and institutional corruption. Today, I'm here to tell you that I will not allow your efforts to go to waste. I'm here to tell you that I will leverage your tremendous accomplishments to serve the ideals that we share, the ideals of peace, of prosperity, of freedom, of health, all the ideals that motivated my campaign. I'm here today to describe the path forward that you have opened with your commitment and with your hard labors.
So he goes on to say, so here, Mr. Truth Ultra is going to lay it out. He's not terminating his campaign. He's only suspending it in 10 battleground states in order to benefit Donald Trump. In a nutshell, RFK is staying on the ballot in states where his presence hurts Kamala, but he's removing himself from states where it hurts Trump. By staying on the ballot in key battleground states, he would likely hand the election over to Democrats. This is absolutely brilliant, but this announcement revealed something very important. The 10 battleground states will be the states ripe with most fraud. I'm eager to learn which states he drops out in. He's also said that Trump and Harris could end up in an electoral tie, resulting in him becoming president. So let's move on.
So I cannot in good conscience ask my staff and volunteers to keep working their long hours or ask my donors to keep giving when I cannot honestly tell them that I have a real path to the White House. Furthermore, our polling consistently showed that by staying on the ballot in the battleground states, I would likely hand the election over to the Democrats with whom I disagree on the most existential issues: censorship, war, and chronic disease. Oh, I want everyone to know that I am not terminating my campaign. I am simply suspending it and not ending it. My name, my name will remain on the ballot in most states. If you live in a blue state, you can vote for me without harming or helping President Trump or Vice President Harris. In red states, the same will apply. I encourage you to vote for me. And if enough of you do vote for me, and neither of the major party candidates win 270 votes, which is quite possible. In fact, today our polling shows them tying at 269 to 269. And I could conceivably still end up in the White House in a contingent election. But in about 10 battleground states where my presence would be a spoiler, I'm going to remove my name. And I've already started that process and urge voters not to vote for me. It's with a sense of victory and not defeat that I'm suspending my campaign activities.
So there you have it. Guess what? During his speech, CNN cut away from his speech as he was explaining how the DNC rigged the primary, replaced their candidate with one who didn't receive a single vote, and how the media covered up for it and censored him. CNN cut away. And what did CNN do? They bring on some bastard first cousin of his to come on and say how Bobby's wrong to do this and how his father would be rolling over in his grave. No, JFK and RFK Jr. would be rolling over in their grave of what has become of the Democratic Party. That's what, because right now, what this means is that the Democrats have fully become the party of George W. Bush. They're anti-freedom, they're anti-democratic, they're rigging primaries, they're using lawfare against their political opponents, they're getting people kicked off the ballot. They're the exact opposite of Democrats. And they're pro-war and anti-worker. And they're pro-censorship. The hallmark of dictators and authoritarians. And if you watch this Democratic convention, it was all run on Trump hate. That was it. They don't have policies. They don't have anything. They have Trump hate. That's it. Our billionaires are better than their billionaires. That was their argument. So here, so CNN is evil. Just so you know, I had two producers from CNN want to come to my show on Friday, and because they want to do documentary on the left, and I was like, no, you can't come. And then they went at the DNC. They wanted to interview me, and they kept reaching out. I was like, no, CNN's evil. I don't trust them at all. And what do I get out of being on CNN? Nothing. I'm more popular than CNN is. So here, he's going to make the same point. Watch this.
Instead of showing us her substance and character, the DNC and its media organs engineered a surge of popularity for Vice President Harris based upon nothing.
Nothing.
No policies.
Based on nothing.
No interviews. No debates.
No, nothing.
Only smoke and mirrors and balloons in a highly produced Chicago circus. There in Chicago, a string of Democratic speakers mentioned Donald Trump 147 times just on the first day. Who needs a policy when you have Trump to hate? In contrast, at the RNC convention, President Biden was mentioned only twice in 4 days.
So they cut away from that. CNN did not want you to see any of that. And that's 100% true and accurate. So here, Kanoka the Great makes a point. He says, Democrat mega donor Reid Hoffman. We've showed you Reid Hoffman. He was the one who said, well, anyway, he runs the Democratic Party. He's one of those guys. He's the billionaire that he's Democratic mega donor Reid Hoffman and Ron Conway's Clear Choice PAC sued to remove Robert Kennedy Jr. from the ballot, stripping millions of his voters of their choice. This led Kennedy to form a unity party with President Trump. Let's be clear about what's happening. The Democratic Party, which lectures the nation about voter suppression and protecting democracy, disenfranchised millions of American voters. And that's what dictators do. The thing that they claim Trump is, the Democratic Party is today. They have all the bad things that George W. Bush had and Dick Cheney, and then some worse. Here is Federal Election Commission, Clear Choice PAC, Inc. Ronald Conway, Reid Hoffman. Yeah. Okay. So here RFK says he's going to join Trump on the campaign out of, watch this.
If I'm given the chance to fix the chronic disease crisis and reform our food production, I promise that within 2 years, we will watch chronic disease burden lift dramatically.
So he's going to be an environmentalist. He's going to go after big agra. He's going after big agriculture. He's going to be an environmentalist. He talked about in this speech about how 50% of American kids are overweight or obese. You know, in Japan, it's 2%. And he's got a plan to fix it. Yeah, we eat garbage. Our food supply is poisoned. I've just woken up to this since I started following a Midwestern doctor's Substack. I found out all about seed oils. Seed oils are in everything. Seed oils are poison. Seed oils are poison. You should only be eating avocado oil or olive oil or butter or ghee. That's it. And fat's not, and the whole thing about fat is bad for you is a lie. Cholesterol, it's a lie. Okay, so anyway, that's another segment, but he really is going to do something.
We will make Americans healthy again. Within 4 years, America will be a healthy country. We will be stronger, more resilient, more optimistic, and happier. I won't fail in doing this. Ultimately, the future, however it happens, is in God's hands and in the hands of the American voters and those of President Trump. If President Trump is elected and honors his word, the vast burden of chronic disease that now demoralizes and bankrupts the country will disappear. This is a spiritual journey for me. I reached my decision through deep prayer, through hard-nosed logic, and I asked myself, what choices must I make to maximize my chances to save America's children and restore national health? I felt that if I refused this opportunity, I would not be able to look myself in the mirror, knowing that I could have saved lives of countless children and reversed this country's chronic disease epidemic. I'm 70 years old. I may have a decade to be effective. I can't imagine that President Harris would allow me or anyone to solve these dire problems. After 8 years of President Harris, any opportunity for me to fix the problem will be out of my reach forever. President Trump has told me that he wants this to be his legacy. I'm choosing to believe that this time he will follow through. His son, his biggest donors, his closest friends, and all support this objective. My joining the Trump campaign will be a difficult sacrifice for my wife and children, but worthwhile if there's even a small chance of saving these kids. Ultimately, the only thing that will save our country and our children is if we choose to love our kids more than we hate each other. That's why I launched my campaign to unify America. My dad and uncle made such an enduring mark on the character of our nation, not so much because of any particular policies that they promoted, but because they were able to inspire profound love for our country and to fortify our sense of ourselves as a national community held together by ideals. They were able to put their love into the intentions and hearts of ordinary Americans and to unify a national populist movement of Americans, blacks and whites, Hispanics, urban and rural Americans. They inspired affection and love and high hopes and a culture of kindness that continue to radiate among Americans from their memory. That's the spirit on which I ran my campaign and that I intend to bring into the campaign of President Trump. Instead of vitriol and polarization, I will appeal to the values that unite us, the goals that we could achieve if only we weren't at each other's throats. The most unifying theme for all Americans is that we all love our children. If we all unite around that issue now, we can finally give them the protection, the health, and the future that they deserve. Thank you all very much.
So the Republican Party is now a party of environmentalism. So I'm going to show you in just a second that when Bobby got introduced by Trump at the rally today in Arizona, they cheered for him, and they cheered for him saying he's going to clean up the food supply and he's going to take on big agribusiness and big agriculture. They cheered for him. That's Republicans cheering on an environmentalist. The things have so that is an amazing story. That's the inspiring Bobby Kennedy that he can be. That's the guy who can bring people together. Now, the one problem, the thing that kept me from getting on board Bobby Kennedy's was his stance on Israel, Palestine. So, you know, and I say if you can't, you have to be able to draw the line at a genocide, which is what's happening, or some people call it ethnic cleansing. And I have you know what I've been saying, that, Trump is often over the top in his rhetoric. And then, like he did with Kim Jong-un in North Korea, and then he brings it around. So he does that. So he creates space for himself to get a settlement, right? Just like Nixon could only go to. It was Nixon who spent his whole career as a red baiter. He went and got friendly relations with China, and they said only someone like Nixon can do that. Because if somebody from the left did it, they would be calling him a communist. So my hope, my cross your fingers sliver of a hope, is that that's what Trump is doing with Israel, and that he's going to, because he likes to force a deal. They're both on the same page when it comes to ending the war in Ukraine now. That's what Bobby says. And Bobby and Trump says today, he said he wants to obliterate the deep state. So I'm going to get to that. But this is, so there's other people starting to agree with my opinion about that the Republicans have a better chance to force a deal in Israel-Palestine than the Democrats. So other people, so that's been my contention. Now, other people are starting to come around, regular mainstream journalists. Hey, come see us on tour. We'll be in Duluth, Georgia, right outside of Atlanta, Jacksonville, Florida, Tempe, Arizona, and Burbank, California. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for those tickets.